Before we jump in, just a reminder that the content we're covering today is intended for informational purposes only and should not be used to make any purchasing decisions. My name is Abby Jenkins, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager at Oracle NetSuite for our supply chain product portfolio, including WMS. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. It's my pleasure to be joined today by Allison Keener, Industry Principal for WMS here at NetSuite and Subject Matter Expert for Warehouse Management. Allison is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Allison.
Thanks so much, Abby. I'm happy to be here.
In the next 30 minutes, we're going to walk through some of the common challenges holding warehouses back when they're relying on manual processes. Then Allison will dive in and give us a live demonstration of NetSuite WMS. We'll then talk briefly about some of the new functionality being added to WMS. And finally, we'll have some time at the end to answer any questions. So let's get started. What many people fail to realize is that at the heart of customer satisfaction is a flawlessly running warehouse. The warehouse may be the most overlooked component of the supply chain. Yet the most innovative customer experience can be negated in an instant if you can't deliver the product to your customer quickly and accurately. With hundreds or even thousands of SKUs to manage, likely across multiple locations, this can quickly become a manual, chaotic, and inefficient process if you're relying on spreadsheets or pen and paper to run your warehouse. Allison, what are some of the most fundamental challenges that manual, paper-based warehousing practices introduce?
Sure. So while there is, of course, variability in the layout, the types of items, the standard operating procedures from warehouse to warehouse, two of the most fundamental and global pain points introduced by manual warehouse processes are inaccurate data capture and real-time data updates, and therefore data visibility to the organization. So how does WMS, specifically NetSuite WMS, help squash these fundamental challenges? Well, let's start with the introduction of mobile devices. NetSuite WMS mobile workflows allow users to type, select, or scan barcodes for transactions, items, lots, and serials if relevant, and bin locations. In fact, it's generally considered leading practice to quote-unquote force scan, essentially eliminate the ability to select a hyperlink of those data elements such that mobile operators are required to scan the barcodes representing the item, the UPC, the lot, and serial, even the bin barcodes. Not only is this much quicker than writing down the relevant details and then communicating or miscommunicating said details to the ERP, but it also ensures that the right details are captured. As important, since NetSuite WMS lives on the same platform and uses the same data infrastructure as NetSuite ERP, and therefore reacts to, updates, creates the native NetSuite transaction records, those aforementioned scans immediately update and or create the proper transactions and therefore the associated inventory. This is going to introduce a level of transaction and inventory transparency to the entire organization so that they can be more efficiently and accurately react and do their jobs. These challenges and the solutions really extend across all warehouse operational areas. On the inbound side, of course, accurate capture of item detail, lot and serial detail is a good starting off point, ensures that data is accurate for subsequent processes. In addition, the ability of the mobile to immediately generate the NetSuite item receipt and update inventory levels reduces that dock to stock time and allows for inventory to be immediately systemically available for subsequent processes. Might be QA, might be outbound commitment, fulfillment, production processes, and so on. On the outbound side, again, force scan, accurate data capture, and validation of that data against the initiating transaction not only allows warehouse managers and customer service to keep an eye on the status of sales or other outbound orders, but essentially eliminates costly missed picks, missed ships, and the returns that come with. Much of the same rings true with the manufacturing and other in the four walls processes. Real-time and accurate scan of work order components against work orders and its associated bill of materials, of items and item quantities that need replenishment from overflow to primary picking areas, of inventory being moved from warehouse to warehouse, and so on, not only ensures accuracy, but also introduces real-time visibility. You're going to always know where everything is, its status, how much is there, who put it there, and when it was put there.
Oh, that makes sense. So obviously accurate data capture and having real-time visibility of it as it enters, moves throughout, and ultimately leaves the warehouse has huge impacts on daily warehouse tasks. What other challenges are warehouses faced when they are relying on manual processes? I mean, how can software replace decades of warehouse experience?
Great question. Keep in mind, NetSuite WMS is not replacing warehouse experience. It's really just converting tribal knowledge to systemic form. When you implement NetSuite WMS, you'll start by systemically building out your physical warehouse. This includes configuration of your bin locations, including their type, inbound, outbound staging, picking, overflow, replenishment, min-max levels, etc., and the zones, which are generally defined as logical groupings of bin locations in which your bins belong. The configuration of put-away strategies inbound allows for the system to recommend to mobile operators the proper bins for put-away based on item and inventory attributes, ensuring, one, that the right items get to the proper homes and therefore are stored appropriately. You want the refrigerated stuff in the refrigerated area of the warehouse. 2, that the warehouse space is used efficiently. And 3, that where inventory is put away is immediately visible to relevant resources and other NetSuite processes. On the outbound side, the introduction of wave release and wave release templates allows for warehouse managers to define the relevant criteria for identifying proper orders and or lines to release to the warehouse for pick task generation and fulfillment. Pick strategies can, but don't need to, be defined for enabling the system to identify the proper recommended bin location or locations for picking based on, in addition to inventory availability, concepts such as first expired, first out, or FIFO, pick to clean, pick to fill concepts, primary bin location. Furthermore, NetSuite WMS will incorporate the concept of pick path to both single and multi-order picking. And for multi-order picking, we'll identify clustering opportunities. We'll see this in a little bit here. If, for instance, I'm picking the same item for 3 orders released together, then rather than traverse the warehouse 3 times to the same bin location, the system is going to recommend that I pick for all 3 orders in one fell swoop while I'm at the bin location. Keep in mind, mobile operators can accept against system recommendations. However, exceptions will be tracked. You're going to always, again, know the who's, what's, when's, how much's, and so on.
Great. I'm excited to see some of this in action.
Sure. Before, however, we jump into the demonstration, I do want to quickly highlight the feature functions with which NetSuite WMS extends NetSuite ERP. I've already alluded to a lot of the stuff in the slide, but as you're going to see here, the use of mobile is prevalent. NetSuite WMS introduces the ability to transact against most of the native NetSuite operational transactions using mobile devices and intuitive mobile workflows, which you're going to see here in a minute. In addition, robust logic can be incorporated into the inbound and put away processes, cycle counting, wave release and picking processes, bin-to-bin replenishment based on min-max quantities, and so on. And of course, this slide is littered with other bits of functionality, such as opportunistic cross-docking, report and label design, mobile label report and printing, parcel carrier application, GS1 barcode support, and more. Let's go ahead, jump into the application and take a look at this stuff. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go through a demonstration of a fulfillment of a couple of sales orders using NetSuite WMS. Now you'll see here to perform non-mobile specific WMS tasks, warehouse resources, managers, operators will go ahead and access NetSuite in the same way as everybody else. NetSuite WMS has been, quote unquote, suite successified. That means when you turn on WMS, you're going to get a set of WMS specific roles. With each role is going to have a set of unique menus and submenus. With each menu, you're going to have a set of dashboards. These dashboards are built off of the native NetSuite searches, KPIs, reports, and such. Idea is here, you're not starting with a blank slate, okay? You're going to start right off 50–60% of the way there, fine-tune these things, build these things out as part of the implementation and thereafter. I'm going to go ahead, access a couple of sales orders here that we'll go ahead and release to the warehouse for fulfillment. As you can see, standard NetSuite sales order here. It's in a pending fulfillment status. A couple of things I want to point out before I go ahead and do the wave release piece. Here, I've got a couple of items on my sales order. This is a standard inventory item. In this case, it's a velocity A item. You see that the inventory has been committed to this particular item. I also have a lock-controlled inventory item. This is a velocity C item. Another thing I want to point out on each of these orders, you'll see an order type specified of priority order type. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, the wave release templates are going to allow the warehouse managers to identify the set of orders, order lines they want to release by any relevant criteria. Could be order header, order line, item, customer detail. I'm going to use this order type for that criteria to demonstrate that concept. My second order here is, again, another standard order. In this case, the same item as I have on my first order is also on this second order. Here we'll be able to demonstrate the clustering capabilities of NetSuite WMS, and I have a second inventory item. Once again, this order is also a priority order type. I'm going to go ahead and jump into our wave release here. As you can see, this wave release template allows me as a warehouse manager to, again, identify order line details for returning, selecting orders and lines to release to the warehouse for pick task generation and picking. Up here at the top, I have some order header level details, transaction number, order type, expected ship date. Down below here, I have item line level details. I can release a specific set of lines to do sort of a zone-based picking approach. We're going to provide you a few of these templates out of the box. You can configure these as needed. These are just NetSuite saved searches. If I go ahead, select a different template here, you'll see the criteria changes. In this case, I'm going to go ahead, select my priority order type, and search for all my high priority orders in this case. System is going to return all the orders that qualify against that criteria. I'm going to go ahead and grab my couple of orders. When I do that, the system is going to summarize the orders, lines, units I've selected that I'm going to release to the warehouse. A few other things to point out here. Here I can specify a priority. This priority is going to drive where in the list of orders, waves in the mobile that what I'm about to release will list. So if I'm releasing my orders first thing in the morning, the night before, my operators are picking on a first come, first served basis, I have a few orders that need to get out the door quickly, I can release those as a high priority. They'll move right to the top of the list in the mobile. Here I've got my picking type. I can release for single order picking. Okay? In this case, I can release many orders at a time. The concept is I will pick, or my operators will pick one order at a time, move to the next order, move to the next order, and so on. In this case, we'll use multiple order picking, where when I select multiple orders, release these to the warehouse, the system is going to generate the pick task such that I'll move to the warehouse, pick multiple orders in one pick task. Again, taking advantage of clustering opportunities where relevant. Finally, I have my status here. If I want to assign mobile operators to waves, to orders, to pick tasks, I can save this in a pending release status. It'll give me the opportunity to do that assignment. I'm going to go ahead, save here in a released status. System is going to hit the picking logic and generate my pick tasks. In doing so, it's going to identify a recommended bin location for each of the items across my orders. Again, taking advantage of clustering opportunities where relevant. Going to identify bin locations that have quantity in them. Look to those FIFO-LIFO concepts, primary bin concepts, pick to clean, pick to fill concepts, and such. If I had assigned a picker or pickers to the orders for the wave, you would see that reflected here. If I had a reason, a use case to select a specific lot or serial number for a specific order line, I could specify that on the sales order line. It will be respected in the pick task generation and in the mobile. Before we go ahead and jump to picking, if I want to produce a pick ticket, I do have the option of doing that here in sort of an ad hoc manner. We do have a pick ticket for each single and multi-order picking. Those can be modified using advanced PDF HTML. I'm going to go ahead, jump into my mobile device and begin the picking process. Mobile devices vary. What you see is what you get, or should I say the emulators, what you see is what you get. When we help you set this up as part of the implementation process, we're going to go ahead, take this URL. This will be your account number. Create a shortcut, favorite, what have you on the device. When your operators are going to log in for his or her shift, go ahead, access that shortcut, enter valid NetSuite credentials. Upon validation of those credentials, the operator will be taken directly to this screen. From here, I'm going to go ahead, select the location in which I'm transacting. Here, you'll see I've got each of my main operational workflows. I've got my inbound, my outbound, my in the four walls, and my production. I'm going to go ahead, drill into my picking workflow. Here, I've got each my single and multi-order picking. In this case, we're doing multiple order picking, so I'll go ahead, select my multi-order picking. System is going to list all of the waves that have been released to the warehouse and have picking tasks left to be completed. Couple things to point out that you'll see across all of these screens on the mobile device. I, as a mobile operator, can pick and choose the columns I want to see on each of these screens. With these mobile devices, it's often a battle of real estate and information. It kind of introduces a user experience, usability. What some people might want to see, others may not. Once I determine the columns that I want to see, log back into the same screen, those columns will reflect any changes I've made. These are user persisted. I can also sort by, filter by any of the information in these columns. So for instance, if I just wanted to see the information in my wave, I could go ahead, type my wave there. You'll see that the other waves sort out. I can also sort by any of the columns by just clicking on the column header. I'm going to go ahead, select my wave 231. System is going to list the pick tasks based on pick path. Okay? Make sure I, as an operator, am moving through the warehouse in an efficient pick path as defined on the bin location record. Here, I'll go ahead, start selecting my pick tasks. System will provide to me the recommended bin. I'll walk to my bin. I will scan my bin location. Right? In general, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, leading practice is to suppress these hyperlinks, force my operators to scan the bin, the item, the lot, the serial number barcode here. I'll scan the item barcode and enter the quantity that I'm going to pick for this particular order. You'll see here, this is the item that is a like item across orders. I'm going to stay at this bin location and pick proper quantity for each of my orders of this item. Once I enter the quantity, I'm prompted to enter, scan a picking carton, pallet, tote, what have you. Picking ID. This is an optional step. Okay? If you want to track to the picking device, you can turn the pick to carton feature on for each single multi-order picking, or if it's just extraneous scanning, you can turn this off. I'll go ahead, enter my detail here, and pick the same item for my second order. Scan that carton for my second order. And the pick task is complete. Move on to my next pick task. You'll see that the completed pick task moves to the bottom of the list here. Walk to my recommended bin. You'll see here we are going to provide you other relevant bin locations that have inventory for this item in them. Users can accept against the recommended bin. We will track that detail. Go ahead, scan my bin, scan my item, enter my quantity. And here I'm prompted to either scan to the carton, pallet, tote, to which I've already picked, or add a second picking ID here. I'll go ahead, pick to the same carton, and move on to my last pick task here. Scan my pick task, walk to my recommended bin, scan my bin. Now, this is a lock controlled item. System is going to return to me or recommend to me the bin location that has the closest to expiration inventory in it based on the rotation type, in this case FIFO, that I've configured on the item. I'll scan my bin, scan my item, right, and enter my quantity. Before I do that, one other thing to point out, you'll see throughout this information icon at the top of the mobile. This is going to provide me non-essential contextual information. In this case, I'm in the picking process. It's going to be providing me pick-related details. If I've set up, configured an image on the item master, system will display that image. I can confirm I'm picking, I'm receiving, I'm counting the proper item. I'll go ahead, like I said, enter that quantity. I'll scan the proper lot and pick to the existing carton for this order. At this point in time, I'm prompted to stage. I'll go ahead, stage to the relevant packing station. System here is going to kind of give me a summary of the orders I've picked, the cartons I've picked, the items, the quantities, and such. At this point in time, I can go ahead in here, re-access my sales orders, refresh them, and you'll see here that my picking quantities have in fact updated. The system has also generated an item fulfillment in a pick status. I'm ready here to go ahead and pack. Packing is an optional step. Okay? If you are picking to the packing shipping container, you don't have a discrete packing step. Similar to the pick to carton, you can use the WMS system rules and auto pack. Once you've completed picking and staging, the inventory, the items against the order will show pack status, as will the item fulfillment. We'll go ahead, jump into the packing screen here. Select the location in which I'm packing. Here I can enter whatever criteria is relevant. Most common is going to be the transaction number or that pick carton, which I can enter over here as well. System is going to return to me the relevant packing details. I can, as a packing resource, confirm that what is systemically picked is physically sitting in front of me for packing. I can enter relevant packing carton IDs, pallets, totes, IDs here. Enter a weight. I can enter a package size if I so choose, and mark any lines and or reference any quantities that I want to pick to this carton. I can, of course, pack to one or many packing cartons, totes, pallets. We'll go ahead, for the sake of time, pack everything to a single carton here. And I'll go ahead and pack my second order here. And here, I'll go ahead and use the pick carton detail here as my filtering criteria. and capture the relevant details and submit here. At this point, of course, I can print a packing list, okay, for each carton that I've packed. If I refresh each of my sales orders once again, you'll see that the items are in a packed status, as is my item fulfillment. At this point, I'm ready to ship. NetSuite WMS is going to support the native ERP shipping options, shipping items, integrated parcel shipping. WMS also introduces the ability to integrate directly with the parcel carrier applications, as well as to mark orders shipped directly from the mobile device. So I'll quickly demonstrate each of those. You'll see that this order is marked for FedEx 2-day. So I'll go ahead, access my FedEx Ship Manager, enter my sales order in here. All of the relevant details will populate down. In this case, I can select my packaging materials that I want to utilize and process the shipment. System will go ahead, spit out the shipping labels, and in a second here, we'll refresh this and see that it is in a pending bill status and has been fulfilled. My second order here is a LTL order, okay, using standard native NetSuite shipping items. Supposing I want to actually mark this order, the cartons packed to this order shipped as I load the truck, I'll go ahead, access my mobile device again, access my picking, my quick ship. I'm shipping a sales order, enter sales order details here. System will return any cartons, pallets, IDs packed to this order. I'll go ahead and process those, enter tracking number details. This could be a bill of lading. I'm just using something generic here, and process the shipment. Once again here, if I refresh my sales order, you'll see that it's in a pending bill status. We'll capture that tracking detail to the shipping sub-tab. Same is going to ring true now for my FedEx order. If I refresh this, it's in a pending bill status. We'll capture the FedEx tracking numbers, shipping costs to the sales order, and the item fulfillment. So let's very quickly see some of the undercovers, the configuration that sort of makes WMS tick before we move on here. I'm going to go ahead, pop into a couple of configuration screens here, okay, namely the locations. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, NetSuite WMS lives on the same platform, uses the same data infrastructure as does ERP. Anywhere possible, it's going to use the native data elements. Okay? So making a warehouse or a location available in the WMS mobile workflows only requires that you turn this Use Warehouse Management checkbox on the native NetSuite location record. Moving on, the bins. The bins are somewhat the heart of WMS. WMS is going to augment the bin location record with some additional fields for supporting warehouse. Okay, so you've got your standard bin number. These are, again, the native NetSuite bin locations. We've incorporated a bin location type here. You'll see here, most of these are picking. If we scroll down, you'll see that there are some inbound staging, outbound staging, work in process types of bin locations. Those are going to drive picking priority, as well as where bins show up from an operational perspective. Of course, I have the zone to which the bin belongs, very important for some of the picking and put away logic. I also have my pick sequence. This is going to help drive pick path as well as my put sequence. If I'm using the replenishment functionality in NetSuite WMS, then these replen, min, max, round, and replenishment quantities become very important on my preferred bin locations. They're going to drive when the system generates a replenishment from my overflow bins in the warehouse to my primary bins in the warehouse. Finally, take a quick look at the put away strategies. Think of the put away and picking strategies as a marriage. When I'm getting ready to put away my items, my inventory, the system is going to look to the put away strategies from lowest to highest sequence. Going to then try to match the item, the inventory attributes as configured on the item master or selected as part of the inventory status selection. Compare those to those same attributes on the put away strategies. When it finds a match, it's going to look to the put away strategy zone and return bin locations in the put away strategy zone as eligible bin locations. Okay, so that's some of the basics of the under the covers elements that sort of, like I said, make WMS tick. Of course, there's many other configuration elements. There's pick strategies, there's carrier service levels, that sort of thing as well.
Thanks, Allison. That was a great peek at NetSuite's WMS capabilities. There's also quite a bit of new functionality being added to WMS in the coming days and months. Is there anything you can share with us today?
Absolutely. So, of course, thus far, we've been covering the current NetSuite WMS version 20.1 release. Important to note, there's a lot of visibility and energy to be putting into NetSuite WMS and the NetSuite WMS roadmap. As a WMS resource and kind of a WMS nerd, I'm actually pretty giddy about what's coming. Of course, I can't talk too far out, but let's quickly talk to and even take a quick peek at a few of the 20.2 features. 20.2 will introduce the ability to tally scan for both single and multi-order picking. What do I mean by tally scan? Well, you notice that when I was picking in the demonstration, I scanned the item, entered the quantity. The tally scanning option will allow me to, rather than scan the item, enter the quantity, increment the pick quantity with each item unit scan, kind of like you see at a grocery store. 20.2 will also introduce the ability to use the NetSuite WMS mobile workflows for receiving, picking, and in the four walls operations such as cycle count without the use of bin location granularity. This is really aimed at those who are not quite ready for full-blown WMS but do want to tackle those two fundamental challenges we discussed earlier, that data validation and real-time inventory updates, as well as for those who manage only storefronts or a mix of warehouse, DC, and storefronts, generally where bin level granularity is not necessary at the storefronts. Few other bits here. WMS will support the printing of GS1 multi-element barcodes. We currently support the scanning, but moving forward, we'll support the printing of those barcodes. WMS will also auto-populate the unit of measure as configured on the item alias record. This allows me to produce, recognize barcodes for different units of measure of the same NetSuite item. Upon scan, the system will automatically update, populate the mobile workflow UOM properly. Take a quick peek at the no bins and the item aliases pieces. So here I am in my 20.2 WMS environment. We're going to go ahead and go through the receiving process using the no bins or a no bins location of WMS. In this case, for my Atlanta no bins location, the bins feature is turned off. A couple other things here before we jump in there. You'll see here, I've got my NSII 1375 item. I'm purchasing this item in eaches. I'm going to demonstrate here this item showing up in cases of 5, using that item alias UOM feature to scan an alias that represents a UOM of case 5, and the system automatically recognizing that UOM and passing it through to the mobile unit of measure. I'm going to go ahead, jump into my mobile here. I'll select my no bins location, receiving. Here, I'm going to go ahead, select my purchase order here. System is going to list my items just like in standard WMS receiving. Here, I'm going to scan, quote unquote, my case 5 barcode for my NSII 1375 item. Again, this is just set up as an item alias. You'll see here, system recognizes that item alias unit of measure and automatically updates my unit of measure to case 5. Here, I can go ahead, enter my quantity, and continue receiving. Now, as part of the no bins setup configuration, you do have the ability to configure what we're calling item stock locations. These can be configured as places where you usually put inventory, pick inventory, move inventory to or from. They're set up at the item location level. In addition to the item stock location for outbound no bins, there is an item location sequence value that will allow for sequencing picks even though there aren't bins. Normally that pick sequence value is on the bin. In this case, it's on the item location. Continue receiving here. And receive my lock controlled item here. You'll see same as with the bins version, support of lot, serial number, inventory, and such. And again, you'll see my stock locations here. Go ahead, receive my full pallet. And all of my items have been received. If I refresh my PO here, you'll see that I'm in a pending bill status and my received quantities have updated accordingly. So again, just a quick sneak peek at some of the features to come in 20.2.
Now we've seen a high-level overview of what NetSuite WMS can do and some of the new functionality that's currently being added. As you've seen, NetSuite WMS provides a warehouse management system that optimizes day-to-day warehouse operations, including receiving, storage, and fulfillment of items. It eliminates manual processes, allowing you to more efficiently run your warehouse, deliver on customer expectations, and minimize handling costs. Allison and I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar.